Welcome back to the series Women's Health Over 40. Now, today I've got a very exciting guest. Today I'm joined by Dr. Christa Maynard. Christa is a nutritional therapist and a yoga teacher with a PhD in the field of Alzheimer's disease, which is super interesting. She has a strong background in brain research, including working at the Karolinska Institute and in Australia as well. And she now supports people in Stockholm to help tackle chronic health issues using the power of nutrition and lifestyle medicine, with a special focus on cognitive health. So in this episode, we're talking about brain health. We're talking about memory, mental clarity, what really happens to the brain as we age, and some practical steps we can take to protect and really support our long-term cognitive function. Thank you so much for coming on here today, because this, to me, and I think to so many women, is such an important subject, isn't it? Brain health and brain health in general, but particularly, women brain health after 40. There's a lot of things that are happening in the body with perimenopause and menopause, and also the aging process there. And I see a lot with my clients that they complain of lack of focus, brain fog, and not being able to remember things, changes in cognitive decline. So I think this is a very interesting subject to discuss with you, with your expertise in brain health, to really let women understand, because it's quite scary as well, isn't it? When all of a sudden you can't remember things, or you feel that your cognition isn't what it used to be. So thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thanks for having me.
So, well, let's get going. So this is really just questions that I feel are very useful for women to know and to understand, particularly as we age as women. So what actually starts to change in the female brain after 40, and why do so many women suddenly notice things like brain fog, anxiety, just forgetfulness, and all these changes in the brain? What is actually going on there, Christa?
Well, during the 40s, usually, sometime in the 40s is a common time that we start to head towards perimenopause. So hormones are fluctuating, our estrogen, progesterone are fluctuating, and generally hormone levels going down. And these can be playing a big part in it. But what I'll say first is there's a lot that happens around this time of life that can directly be caused by hormones, which act on other systems in the body as well. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do about it. It might mean we just need to work a little bit harder, because there are other ways, these things that, don't work as well in the body anymore. There are other natural ways that we need to support them. It just might have been that we could get away with a lot more when we're younger. Now we've got to put in a little bit more effort. So we've got fluctuating hormones, declining hormones. We can lose our resilience to stress, our sort of the buffering capacity, things like brain fog and forgetfulness. It can relate to increased inflammation. It can relate to increased oxidative stress. It can relate often to reduced energy production in the brain. And now the thing is, the hormones are quite protective, and that can be a big player, but there can be other things that cause it, like, the diet, blood sugar dysregulation, stress or lack of sleep, things that causing, or nutrient deficiencies. And when we've lost a bit of that buffering capacity, that protective effects of the hormones, these things might shine through. So we've got more inflammation or oxidative stress, the energy production in our brain becomes less efficient. With less energy, we might feel brain fog or slowness and this sort of thing.
Yeah, brain fog. I think when I look at the clients that I see, your brain fog is one of those things, and I can really relate to that myself, having being in menopause. That is one of the most common symptoms that I see. That kind of just that foggy feeling where you really feel like you can't remember, or you just feel your brain isn't working. is there any, just focusing in on brain fog, is there anything, main driver of that? Or are there other factors involved in brain fog as well?
Well, brain fog, a key thing there is something that's actually it is actually slowing down something that's slowing down the brain's processes. It can be the lack of energy, like the energy producing processes are less efficient, and it can be due to metabolic changes opening the brain. It can be deficiency of vitamins, but it can be the inflammation that is caused by something, blood sugar, dysregulation, lack of hormone, supportive effects, inflammation, which even things like stress and lack of sleep can be contributing to. So, yeah, but basically a sluggishness due to one of these factors. And it can be different things because, I mean, even lack of thyroid hormones will cause brain fog. The great thing is when someone's just not functioning properly, they've got brain fog, maybe they're frustrated, they've got mood issues, lots of things. Brain fog is often something when they fix up their diet and their lifestyle, when they fix up a lot of the root causes, they're like, oh yeah, the brain fog is gone now. Because maybe the body's not inflamed anymore. Maybe the oxidative stress is being taken care of. Maybe they got over the sugar addiction or something, and blood sugar is in better control. But it is a thing that often I see people report that, oh, the brain fog is better. I'm more clear in the head. Sometimes you got to work harder at it, but it is a symptom. It's not like you're stuck like that forever. If we can figure out the causes and do something about it, then brain fog can improve, because we can improve inflammation and oxidative stress, and often our energy producing processes in the brain we can also improve, even if the hormones are not ideal and they're part of the problem. We can, other approaches that for improving these things, like blood sugar control, like improving the diet, the lifestyle.
Yeah, so it's always good to know, isn't it, that there are things that can be done. And like you say, it's never just one thing, is it? And we're all very individual, and it's normally many things like you were saying. But it's always good news to know that there are things that can be done. Now, the hormonal changes that we've already broached on in perimenopause and menopause, and really, thereafter as well in postmenopause, that affects memory and focus. And, how can these changes that are going on that really affect memory and focus and emotional resilience, is there any way that can be improved, or what should women that are listening to this think about? Is there any way that they what can they do to help, or what can they do in their daily life to improve that?
Yeah, well, I think you need to firstly accept that maybe you can't live the same way you did in your 20s and your 30s. You might need to take better care of yourself. If you've got the, reductions in hormones or hormonal fluctuations, if you've lost the resilience, you may need to get to bed on time. You may not be able to just have massive amounts of stress in your life, whether they're coming from work, relationships, expectations of yourself. Very often it's expectations of yourself and wanting to do everything or wanting to really succeed. Sometimes you might need to look at your life, and because I see chronic stress is, I think, the number one risk factor for whatever problem people come to me for. A history, and it could have been work or relationship, it could be, stuff happened. Like, it is the worst risk factor. And it is not an easy one to solve. I mean, lives are complicated. We not always in great control, but just to do the best. So reassessing what is in your life that maybe you need to find a way to reduce the stress on you, what you're trying to do in your life. If you need to change your job, some people need to change role in a job, change careers, or it might not be that drastic. Could be relationship things, could be just how many activities you're taking your kids to, or how many activities or things you're doing, or how many things you say yes to at work to do, to take on to yourself, as opposed to being like, this is this might be too much for me to do realistic, because you know you're going to be up all night trying to complete these tasks that your boss wants you to do, to be able to say, this is like unrealistic. Maybe we need to get someone else on the project. These sorts of things, I think, are important to take a step back, look at what is driving you into the wall, but then also to look at your diet as well, and look at your lifestyle. I mean, physical activity is so important for our brain function, our memory, for our BDNF production. That's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, basically nerve growth factor that keeps our brains working well, and also preventing things like depression. Physical exercise is like it's like one of the most important things for keeping the brain healthy. And that might differ depending who you are, but being active every day, not being sedentary, so important. It might mean just like going for walks every day. That's great for the stress as well. Um, but I'd say, yeah, physical activity, maybe it's going to exercise classes, maybe it's doing yoga, maybe it's playing tennis, like whatever your thing is, but getting active. And then looking at what you are eating, your diet, that it's eat a diet, hopefully mostly natural foods, like whole foods, not a lot of processed stuff, not too many carbohydrates, additives, this sort of thing. Enough protein in there, enough vegetables and color, not like carbohydrate dominant, or if you've got like a problem with too many snacks and sweets, it's going to be messing with your blood sugar, trying to swap these out for something else or change the habits. But yeah, this yeah, I don't remember what the original question was now, but I don't know if I've gone off track.
No, you haven't. You've answered it
No,
brilliantly. The question
no,
was,
but so the stress management, number one, fixing up your diet if that needs fixing up, and that can be a blood sugar control, it can be getting rid of additives that are going to be inflammatory and not make you feel good and clog up your detoxification processes. When we get to this age, we don't want to be overloading our body with toxins. We, aside from not functioning as well, we don't want to like contribute to like development of cancer or something like this. We want to have efficient detoxification processes. We don't want garbage accumulating in our brain. We need a decent overnight fast. The thing is, the brain runs best on ketones, like energy from fat. If we're constantly fed, then our metabolism doesn't get good at using fats for energy. Our brain thrives on fats. People who do longer fasters often find that they're very sharp when they're fasting, or if you do say a fasting day, it's like, oh, the brain is sharp. This is because when we humans evolved and we might have been starving for a while till we got our next meal, we needed to be sharp to like be going out and hunting or whatever, have our wits about us. So yeah, ketones are really the preferred brain fuel. So it's not, we don't want to be in this constant fed state. So physical activity and a decent overnight fast. That just can mean don't have a late dinner and snack at night, have an earlier dinner, and don't necessarily have breakfast first thing in the morning if you don't need it first thing in the morning. If you can go for a walk first, go to work first, do some stuff before you need to sit down and enjoy your breakfast, do that. It might, but even if you don't, just don't have dinner too late. If you can make that overnight fast window a bit larger, just to the extent that you're comfortable with, that also can be very beneficial for the brain function and the slowing or prevention of cognitive decline, and the diseases associated with aging. And sleep. I mean, if you have bad sleep, well, that's so important. So working on whatever you need to do for improving your sleep. Yeah. It's
oh,
awesome.
great, thank you. So it's such a, I mean, it's, you could talk about it for hours, really, couldn't
Yeah.
you? All the things that you can do, but like you were saying, I totally agree. Managing stress is just so detrimental, isn't it? They're looking at what you eat, sleep, fasting, totally. When I fast, you do your brain, you just feel more alive, don't you? You feel much more alert, even if you're just doing it for 16 hours or longer. It really, really does make you feel better. So yeah, thanks for all that wonderful information. Now, I find that a lot of clients I work with, a lot of women always ask me, that, I'm feeling burnt out. I feel, I'm still functioning, but I'm feeling mentally overwhelmed. I think that is something that a lot of women can really relate to. That feeling
Mm.
of exhaustion, even you still have to function, but you feel very, very mentally overwhelmed. Um, you're getting everything done, but you really just feel like exhausted. What is actually going on in the brain here when you've got that really kind of like high load state? Um, I think it's interesting to understand that.
Mm. So I think in these cases, the person is almost constantly in a state of flight or fight. We need to
Mm.
be sometimes in a flight or fight state, which is the sympathetic nervous system, but we need to be able to shift into the parasympathetic, which is rest or digest, because there are many of the functions that go on in our body. They are functioning best when we're in this rest or digest state, and that's things like our digestion. And our immune system functioning. So I think these women are just living in a flight or fight state. So then you've got high stress hormones, like cortisol, constantly, and that also affects the way the body is functioning and the way the brain is functioning, and it's yeah, not helpful. So to try and, to try and work on this, we need to work on calming down the nervous system, and like, and if it, depending on who you are, it could be, like I was saying before, reducing your obligations or something, or, but it could be taking time out to do something to really unwind, like meditation, maybe just putting in 5 minutes meditation. You may not allow yourself normally to sort of calm down, focus. Actually, the women who are in the worst state of just stress chaos, they're the ones who, when you suggest meditation, are like, no, 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 I couldn't do that. But because they are just so wired, and the concept of meditation is just like, no, 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 I couldn't do that. What, I don't have to. So, but they're the ones who really need, maybe you need to do something else first, but something like yoga, going for walks in the nature, just even training the mind to switch to calmer things, or listening to calm music. Um, Mindfulness, try practicing positive thinking. Like if you've got a lot of worries to do, if it's work, relationships, or something going around in your head, learning to switch over, either think positively, think about the positive things in life, or switch your mind, learning to shut off from those troubles, focus on something else. It's something we can train our brain to do. But also controlled breathing is something, and this is something we do in yoga, and it's something where we are physically helping our bodies to shift to a more relaxed state. When we control our breath, we also, because like breath is voluntary and involuntary, and the breath might respond when we're stressed, we change the breath in response to the nervous system, but by controlling the breath, we can always, to be calmer and longer and smoother, we can also uh, affect the nervous system, make the nervous system calm down. So breathing, for someone actually who's too stressed out to consider meditation, controlled breathing could be a really good first step.
Yeah, breathing. I love breathing. And you can do it anywhere, can't you? It doesn't cost
Mm,
anything. You can do it whether you're at your desk or wherever you are, and it has such a
mm.
huge effect on the nervous system. Yeah. So going back to nutrition here, are there any specific nutrients or deficiencies that you maybe commonly see in women over 40 or perimenopausal women um, that affect like concentration, memory, mental energy? Um, and are there any like practical food based ways that we can support this?
So mainly deficiencies that I can actually see are those that are in that we can see in a test easily. So others we might like guess, but vitamin D is a really key one, particularly living in the Northern Hemisphere. And you get that some from fish and from eggs, but otherwise it is one you, and in getting out into the summer, into the sun in the summer, but it is something you need to supplement generally in the winter. Um, this is not something we're always telling by measuring, but magnesium is something that firstly, mm, generally these days there's too little of it in foods, even with a good diet. There's less in the soil. But when we're more stressed and anxious, we'll burn through more magnesium. So this is something I often see that people are deficient in it. They supplement it and they feel better, or they sleep better, and that's a sign that you were needing a bit more. But B vitamins, I really often see deficiency in B vitamins, and these are very important for the brain health, but also for the metabolism, for many other aspects of the health. But I do see that that's like the ones we test is generally B12 and folate. It depends a bit on the diet because B12 you'll get from animal sources. So people who eat quite a lot of meat, they often have very good B12 and their folate's rubbish because they need to eat more vegetables. Um, if someone eats mostly a plant-based diet, they might have quite low B12. But some people eat a quite what you might consider a normal omnivorous diet, but still they might have quite low folate and B12. I still see that. And sometimes things like B12 and folate, even iron, um, the levels can be poor and it might be the digestion and the nutrient uptake is not so good. Maybe the gut health is not so good. Um, or maybe they've got high level of stress, so they're not producing enough stomach acid and their digestion's ineffective, or their stomach acid is insufficient and they're not taking up the nutrients as well. And this affects things such as iron and magnesium. So yeah, I'd say the magnesium, vitamin D, and the B vitamins are ones that I always see deficiencies in most.
Yeah, interesting.
And
Now,
and I want to say where you get them. So greens, I just want to say dark leafy greens. Eat a big handful of dark leafy greens because you'll get B vitamins, you'll get iron, you'll get magnesium, you get beta carotene, B vitamins. There's a lot that you get in dark leafy greens. There's not a lot of energy from them, but there's a lot of goodness. So that would be my
brilliant.
advice.
Thank you. That's so useful. And then blood sugar, and I know blood
Mm.
sugar is something that I certainly talk about a lot with my clients. But how can women balance, on a day-to-day, realistic way? How can people, keep their blood sugar more stable? I think that people want to know how to do that, don't they? Because there's so much talk about blood sugar.
Mm. Yeah, the thing is, people are so different in how they actually eat from the first place. I see people's food diaries, as you do. There's a wide difference. Some people are really quite so to the overnight fast actually is very important. Having a decent overnight fast, whatever you're eating in between, that's time to having a longer overnight fast can help our blood sugar, our insulin sensitivity and help us with our metabolism. But when we're eating, having enough protein and healthy fats and not too much fast carbs. And that could be that your breakfast is not just a big bowl of porridge made of oats. You want some other things that in there, maybe have some nuts and seeds and maybe some berries. Or having something that's not a high carb breakfast like that, but your meals that you have more protein, which can be animal protein or plant-based protein. It can be, your meat, your fish, it can be your pulses like your lentils or tofu, and healthy fats, things like avocado, olive oil, seeds and nuts, having and then vegetables like above ground vegetables, but not having to it's very common that a meal is like based on carbohydrates with a bit of other stuff. Like if it's a sandwich, a lot of bread with a bit of other stuff, a bit of protein, a bit of salad in there maybe, or that it's like a bowl of porridge with a bit of something fruit on it. That's a lot of carbohydrate, or like a bowl of pasta or rice with a bit of curry on top, rather than a whole lot of curry with a little bit of rice on the side. You know, you can achieve a lot by shifting the proportions on your plate, that the carbohydrate rich portion, which could be potatoes, could be rice, could be pasta, or bread, that is a smaller portion, and that the bit that's got the vegetables and the protein is the larger part of the plate. So I think that's the most important thing, your ratio on your plate. The other thing, of course, is snacking. If you're someone who snacks, I mean, that could be where you're going down the drain. You might be having the really, really great low carb meals, but then if it's like, oh, but the evening is when we're most drawn to these like reward foods that are rich in like sugar and fat and maybe salt. If you've got like a evening stacking habit, or the afternoon you'll get out a packet of biscuits or a kanelbulle or something like that, um, then that could be where you can make the big difference, like swapping out these things, have some nuts and a bit of fruit instead of a packet of some biscuits or whatever your thing is, or chocolate or something. Or at night, like changing your habits. I know if I'm staying up late working, often I'll go to the chocolate cupboard. But I know that the way to solve that is don't stay at working late. Organize myself so I don't have to, and then, do something else. Have a cup of tea and don't let myself get into that stress situation that I know leads to me going to the chocolate cupboard. But even if I'm going to do that, it's like, well, I only have really dark chocolate, so they'll be sick if I have too much of it. If I had something else, like a packet of biscuits that you could just like eat the whole lot, then that would be a disaster. So I don't buy them.
No, it's great, isn't it? It's the trigger foods. I always
Mm,
try not to have trigger foods at home. And I say to people, don't, if it's biscuits or donuts or whatever your thing is that you have like a weakness or a habit for, don't have it in the house, because it's very rare
exactly.
that you'll actually get in the car or walk to the shop. Then, then you have got a serious craving, really, haven't you, if you're prepared to
Yeah.
actually leave the house to buy it. So
Yeah. But I
brilliant.
always
Thank
say don't get like as cheap, even if it's on special as cheap, because I was always a sucker for something being on special, and my mother was too. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. If it's something you don't want to be eating, it does not matter. If it's like free, you just, yeah, just
No,
don't buy it.
exactly. Just
Mm,
because it's reduced, it doesn't mean to say that you have to buy it.
no.
One thing as well that makes me smile, and I sometimes do it myself, is go shopping when you're hungry. Is the worst thing you can do, isn't it? Isn't it
Mm,
fascinating how all of a sudden, you find yourself in the middle aisles of the shop, like the heavy carb, refined carbs, like the crisps and the biscuits. Whereas if you stay around the outside in the vegetables and the meat and the fish department, it's fascinating if you go shopping when you're really hungry, and then you find your trolley
mm,
all of a sudden's got like bagels and things that you would never normally buy. It's fascinating.
yeah.
So this question is I've been dying to ask you this, because you as an expert in this area, there's been quite a lot of research recently coming out on brain health, on women's in particular perimenopause, hormone replacement
Mm,
therapy, all of that thing. And there was one that came out recently, which was talking about that they'd seen reductions in grey matter in areas linked to memory and emotions. And obviously, this was a very big research paper that, I'm not going to spend hours discussing everything that was in it. Um, but what should women really think about this research? Not just this paper, but all the research, because some of it is it contradicts itself. If you don't take, for example, I'm giving you some examples
mm,
now. There's a lot of research about hormone replacement therapy, which obviously is very good, very interesting. But some of it says, that hormone replacement therapy, if you don't take this, then you're more at risk for osteoporosis, dementia, Alzheimer's, all of that. But this study that came out recently was looking at how, comparing women that took HRT and women that didn't, and the brain and the shrinkage in the brain, which I thought was very interesting. But can you just clear it up for us, Christa, about the research, in particular this paper, because it can be quite alarming for women, can't it, to read this and think, oh, what
mm,
should I do?
mm. Yeah, well, in relation, so this study that you're talking about, they compared women before menopause and after menopause, and those who took hormone replacement therapy and those who didn't, and it was clear before after menopause that, yeah, there was shrinkage of certain regions of the brain and there was increased anxiety and depression. Um, but in what was interesting and maybe alarming is that the ones who took hormone replacement therapy had it was sort of they had worse anxiety and depression, and everything seemed worse with those ones. But the important thing is the women who chose to have the hormone replacement therapy or recommended the hormone replacement therapy, they were different people to the ones who chose not to have hormone replacement therapy. The difference is that these women already were suffering more with their anxiety and depression and their mood even beforehand. And this is one of the things that probably led to them doing the hormone replacement therapy, because the doctor thought, or they thought, this might help me, I need it. So it seems alarming. Oh, goodness me, the woman who took hormone replacement therapy, they've got more brain shrinkage, they've got more anxiety and depression, but it's not, it really seems quite clear. It's not, you definitely can't conclude it's because of it. These women were already suffering more. And so if you are suffering already with anxiety and depression before menopause, yes, it might get worse. So I think it's not necessarily so alarming. The thing though, and the research is still trying to figure this thing out. Hormone replacement therapy, should I do it? Should I not do it? When should I do it? What form should it be, natural or, bioidentical or artificial, like, what, just estrogen with progesterone? The thing is, research is contradictory because there are so many variables. And something that more clearly has come out in recent years is that there is a window of opportunity. If you start it more closer to perimenopause, it can be beneficial, but still then it depends a bit on your individual circumstances with your genetics, your maybe your hormone levels and your needs, and or hormone metabolism and these sort of things. But if you don't start it until, say, over 65, they've shown then that it's worse, that cognition actually becomes worse because of it. So it's not great deciding once you're 65 years old, oh, maybe I should take some HRT, it might help me, because the research has shown generally, on average, that is associated with worse outcomes, whereas in some studies, taking it earlier has been beneficial, and we think about benefits to skeletal health, but still, it seems to be variable whether women are getting benefits or not. So it is quite tricky. Generally, the more bioidentical hormones seem to have better profile, like what would you call benefit profiles, but it is tricky and it really seems there's a window. But I think some women, they start on hormone replacement and they really notice distinct differences. Like benefits. And if you're someone who notices a distinct benefit, that I think is more of a sign that is doing something good. Whereas others maybe, might not. But it's an area where hopefully we'll have better understanding in the future to be able to better tailor to the individual based on their genetics, their age, other maybe biomarkers, looking at like the hormone levels. Is it someone who's got generally, low progesterone to start with, and the mode of applying it as well, or taking it, oral or transdermal.
Well, thank you for that, for clearing that up. It's so fascinating, isn't it, with research? But I think it can be quite alarming, and a lot of the time the way it's reported in the press, they haven't, they just pick out the bits that they want, don't they? They don't look at the whole, conclusion of the paper. Now, one thing I want to ask you here, and you with your expertise in brain health and Alzheimer's and everything, and I see this, and I get asked this all the time, and there's so much about cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, and women in particular. It's more prevalent, isn't it, in women? I know this is a big question, but I think women would like to know, you know, if you could, obviously this is a very big discussion, but if you could just give us some, what can we do as a preventative? How can we look after our brains to help us, you know, to prevent us from developing these diseases when we're older? Is there anything that we can do that is seen to be very positive for the brain to keep it nice and healthy?
Well, I'd say there's a lot, but to try and put it in a nutshell, generally what we see is healthy living, and this is because the thing is, and the area that one person needs to work on more is different to another. But good sleep, managing the blood sugar control, like not developing insulin resistance, like having a good healthy diet with plenty of color, and physical activity, and using your brain. What is really amazing is that when people say have not been looking after themselves, they've got shrinkage of regions of their brain, they may be starting to get cognitive decline. Studies have shown when they fix everything up, they start having an amazing diet, they supplement where needed to get rid of deficiencies, like B vitamin deficiencies. Vitamin D, for example, are really big ones, and perhaps omega-3. They're really big nutritional areas where you can really suffer when it's too low, or if your thyroid hormones are too low too, you can really suffer. If you're fixing these things, it can make, can make a big difference. But I think exercise is really what can make the biggest difference in people. Like, of course, some people are already active, so then it might be less of a difference. If of course, you're not active and you start being active, it can do amazing things. It's giving signals to your brain to stay alive. It's bringing oxygen to your brain, which it needs to stay alive, that the neurons need to stay alive. So exercise is amazing. If you don't have good sleep, the sleep. If you've got nutritional deficiencies like vitamin D deficiency or B deficiencies, you want to sort those out. If you're hypothyroid, you want to sort that out. But, a whole foods diet, not having a lot of processed food with a lot of carbohydrates and additives, they're going to be inflammatory. Lots of vegetables and variety of proteins, and just not a typical Western diet, which I think everyone with their common sense knows. It can feel very normal to eat a lot of processed foods because you see everyone else doing it. I see what people buy at the supermarket, and then I'm happy when I see, I see the difference. Someone like, oh, there's someone who tends to eat quite healthy, and I see what the others are buying. And it's a contrast, but I think we sort of know what's like, generally healthy diet. It can make all the difference. But as I said, we're individual. The things that can drive cognitive decline can be different. In some people, it might be low hormones. It can be a key driving factor. That could be thyroid, or it could be sex hormones. That could be a key thing. But it could be, insulin resistance. It could be, and there can be like a lot of inflammation. It's a key one in loads of people these days. Nutrition deficiencies, not having enough physical activity, not getting enough oxygen to the brain. I mean, just getting oxygen to the brain is so important. If you've got maybe poor breathing, when you're sleeping, if you're not breathing well, if you're snoring, then it can be a sign the breath's not good. But yeah, exercise, a nice clean diet, and making sure you're not too deficient in nutrients, which, yeah, maybe you want to test, maybe you want to supplement. It's a bit individual, but yeah, covering everything. Use your brain, get enough sleep, eat a good diet, exercise, manage your stress. I think they're the key things. Don't expose yourself to too many toxins either.
Yeah, it's lifestyle, isn't it?
Mm.
Lifestyle medicine, really, looking at all the different factors to keep your brain nice and healthy. Brilliant. That's just so much fantastic information. Now, just to finish off here, what I like to ask all my guests are that, just to give women that are watching this, if a woman is watching this, Christa, that's feeling like mentally exhausted, the foggy brain fog, feeling overwhelmed. What would you say? I know we've discussed many fantastic things here, but what are the three most powerful things she could start doing this week to support her brain health?
Yeah. Well, thinking about what we've talked about, identifying what, if she's feeling overwhelmed, I'd say that stress is probably the number one area. So I would say, firstly, look at, is there something that she can do, one thing that she can do in her life that she thinks would reduce her stress, one change to make, and make the change. There's usually something that we could do. The other is physical activity, is getting out and getting active. Go for a walk or a run in the nature if there's nature around. Otherwise, it can be around the neighborhood. I think that can be that gives you the time out, to clear your head, and you get active. It, helping you make happy hormones and feel good. Um, and yeah, with the diet, if there's one thing, I'll just say, because it depends how the person eats, look at your diet, shift to more whole foods. If it's sugar, try and ditch the sugar or reduce it, but more, I'd say maybe probably more leafy greens and vegetables in the diet. Most people can do with some more above ground vegetables in the diet, regardless of how they eat. That's often an area they could do more. But yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's three wonderful things that are very actionable, aren't they? Start small, small thing. The habits that you do daily make a huge difference, don't they? Just
Yeah.
small things. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Christa, for your time and your expertise. It's a fascinating subject, and it's wonderful to be able to talk to you about this. Tell all the listeners where they can find you if they want to learn more about your work.
Yeah, so I'm located in central Stockholm at Orenplan, and also virtually. My website is healthinbalance.se. So in English, healthinbalance.se. That's yeah. And if you live in Stockholm and you like yoga, I'm in the Vinterviken area teaching yoga there. Vinterviken, Liljeholmen, Aspud and Ansberg. I don't know how many people listening would be in these areas, but yeah, www.healthinbalance.se is my website. And yeah, you can read about me and how I work, with cognitive health, brain health, and other areas. And I've got, recipes and things there as well.
But you can book appointments with you there as well if they want
Yeah,
you
to
to.
book an appointment, you just go to the contact page. And I mean, I work with, improving cognitive health, but I work with other, areas, basically working like a health detective, when someone's got a bunch of symptoms. I do a lot of blood testing and other testing to try and get to the bottom of things. But I see people online and in person.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Christa. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.